What if the protein sitting on your plate right now is quietly working against how long you'll live? Stop for a second and think about that, because most of us were taught that protein is protein, that as long as you're getting enough of it, your body doesn't care where it comes from. But that's not true, and the difference between the right proteins and the wrong ones might be one of the biggest factors separating people who live long, healthy lives from people who don't. Today, I'm going to walk you through the exact proteins linked to longevity, and stay with me until the end, because the third one on this list is something almost nobody thinks of as protein at all, and it might be the most powerful one on this entire list. Let's be real for a moment. Most of us grew up believing that a big plate of meat equals strength, equals health, equals the right way to eat. Chicken breast for lunch, steak for dinner, protein shakes after the gym. This has become the default formula for anyone trying to be healthy. And it's not that this is completely wrong, it's that it's incomplete. Because when researchers look at populations around the world who live the longest, who stay sharp, mobile, and disease-free well into their 80s and 90s, their protein sources look surprisingly different from what we've been told to eat. And once you understand why, you'll never look at your plate the same way again. Here's what's actually happening at a deeper level. Protein isn't just protein. It's a package. Every time you eat a piece of meat, you're not just getting amino acids, you're also getting saturated fat, inflammatory compounds, and depending on the source, hormones and preservatives that come along for the ride. Your body has to process all of that together. So while the protein itself might be building your muscles, everything attached to it could be quietly working against your blood vessels, your organs, and the systems responsible for keeping you youthful and energized. This is the piece nobody explains clearly, and it's the real reason two people can both be eating high-protein diets and end up with completely different health outcomes. Now here's where I want you to really pay attention, because what I'm about to share next isn't about cutting meat out of your life completely. It's about understanding which proteins actually add years to your life versus which ones might be quietly taking them away. And the answer might completely surprise you. Our brains love simple rules. Eat more protein feels simple, actionable, easy to follow. But biology isn't simple. And this is exactly why so many people follow generic advice for years without ever seeing the results they were promised. They eat enough protein, they hit their macros, and they still feel inflamed, still feel tired, still age faster than they'd like. It's not because they lack discipline. It's because they were never told that the source matters just as much as the amount, and that's the piece we're fixing today. Let's start with the first category, and I want you to really absorb this one. Meat, but in moderation, not as the center of every single meal. This isn't about eliminating it, it's about recognizing that when meat becomes the default protein at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, that constant load adds up in ways your body feels long before you notice it consciously. Reducing the frequency, not necessarily removing it completely, is one of the simplest shifts linked to better long-term outcomes. The second category might surprise you if you're someone who avoids seafood. Fish like salmon and cod, along with shellfish. These aren't just lean protein, they carry additional compounds that support your blood vessels and reduce inflammation at the same time they're building and repairing your muscles. It's protein that works with your body instead of against it, and it's one of the most consistent patterns found in people who age slowly and stay active well into their later decades. And now, the third one, the one I promised you earlier, the one most people completely overlook. Beans, especially lentils. I know what you're thinking, beans don't feel like real protein compared to a steak or a piece of chicken. But this is exactly the mental trap we've been conditioned into. Lentils and beans are loaded with protein, fiber, and plant compounds that work together to support your gut, your blood sugar, and your long-term vascular health in a way that animal protein alone simply can't replicate. This is the part that makes people pause and rethink everything they thought they knew about getting enough protein, because it turns out the humble lentil might be doing more for your longevity than the protein shake you drank this morning. Does this feel familiar? If you've spent years chasing protein numbers without really understanding the sources, you're not alone, and this isn't your fault. Nobody explains this clearly. We're told to eat more protein as if it's a single, simple category, when in reality it's a spectrum, and where you land on that spectrum has a real measurable impact on how you age. So let's keep going, because there's more. Tree nuts and seeds are another category that quietly supports longevity, not just because of their protein content, but because of the healthy fats and micronutrients that come packaged with them. A handful of walnuts or a spoonful of chia seeds isn't just a snack, it's a small deposit into your long-term vascular and metabolic health, something that adds up meal after meal, year after year, in ways that are easy to underestimate in the moment. Then there's tofu, edamame, natto, and soy milk, foods that many people in the West still approach with hesitation, often because of outdated myths that never had strong evidence behind them to begin with. These soy-based proteins are consistently linked with populations that live the longest, healthiest lives on the planet. They provide complete protein while supporting hormonal balance and reducing inflammation, working quietly in the background in a way that a piece of processed meat simply cannot. And finally, quinoa, one of the few plant foods that gives you a complete protein profile on its own. It's not just a trendy health food, it's a genuinely powerful source of sustained energy and muscle-supporting nutrients without the inflammatory baggage that comes with heavily processed or excessive animal protein. Here's the pattern I want you to notice across every single one of these. The proteins most strongly linked to a longer, healthier life are overwhelmingly plant-based, or when animal-based, they come from the ocean rather than the land. This isn't about extremes. It's not about becoming vegan overnight or swearing off meat forever. It's about shifting the ratio, making plant proteins the foundation of your plate more often, and treating meat as an occasional addition rather than the default centerpiece of every meal. What's really powerful about this shift is that it doesn't require perfection. It requires awareness. The next time you're deciding what to eat, and you're standing there thinking, I need protein, this is your moment to pause and ask yourself which kind of protein you're actually reaching for, and whether it's one that's working with your long-term health or quietly working against it. That single moment of awareness repeated over months and years is what actually separates people who age well from people who don't. I also want you to think about someone in your life, a parent, a partner, a friend, who's constantly trying to eat healthier, but doesn't know this distinction exists. They might be doing everything they think is right, hitting their protein goals, avoiding sugar, exercising regularly, and still missing this one crucial piece of the puzzle. Sharing this with them isn't just useful information. It could genuinely change how they age over the next 10, 20, 30 years. The same way this information might already be reshaping how you think about your next meal. Let's zoom out for a second. We live in a culture obsessed with protein numbers, grams per day, protein shakes, protein bars, but so few of us ever stop to ask about the quality and source behind those numbers. Longevity isn't about hitting a number on an app. It's about understanding what that protein is bringing into your body alongside the amino acids and choosing sources that support you instead of slowly working against you over decades. This is where real change begins, not with a drastic diet overhaul, not with cutting out everything you enjoy, but with small, consistent shifts, adding more lentils, more fish, more nuts and seeds, more tofu, and simply treating red meat as a guest at the table rather than the host. It's not complicated once you understand the reasoning behind it, and now you do. So here's my question for you, and I genuinely want to know your answer. Out of everything we covered today, meat in moderation, fish and shellfish, lentils and beans, nuts and seeds, soy-based proteins, or quinoa, which one are you already eating enough of, and which one do you need to add more of starting this week? Comment it below, because I promise you, seeing where you stand compared to everyone else in the comments is going to be eye-opening. Share this with someone who's trying to eat healthier but might be missing this exact piece of the puzzle. And I'll see you in the next video where we'll keep uncovering what actually adds healthy years to your life.